is like if your heart is to help people who are not in the church, he's like, well then obviously the church is the worst place to do that, because everyone who's here is going to be in the church and involved in the church. Pastors are basically like entrepreneurs, and I think that was what I kind of felt the pulse of, was like, I think I love the entrepreneurial aspect of this, but I don't want to go and plant a church,
Don't fear, the bad business friends are here.
All right, Jacob, here we go. Welcome to Bad Business Friend YouTube channel. I'm Scott Shin, founder of Revival Jewelry. We're here with Jacob Pazos, founder of Jacob Mark Jewelers. A lot of YouTube channels like to share their success stories, but we're here to share our failure stories. This is for your benefit, or at the very least, so that you can get a laugh out of it. So Jacob, are you excited about this?
I'm very excited.
I can tell. I can see it in your face. The level of energy here. It is. I will say we this is like one of the first things we're doing in the morning right now, and so maybe we are a lower energy. Are you a morning person, Jacob? I don't remember.
I'm not a morning person at all. But
you don't drink coffee.
I'm excited about this. First episode too, so we'll see.
Anyway, since it is our first episode, I want to just kick it off to kind of talk about ourselves. I don't think we're very interesting guys, but we do have I think at least we have an interesting story to tell, and that's why we're doing this. And, I think even though we say we're doing this for the benefit of others, honestly, I'm partially doing this for myself, because I want you to hold me accountable, because I know we've known each other for a while, so that and whenever I, put my foot in my mouth and say, oops, I screwed up, you hold me accountable and say, hey, how are we going to do this better next time? I want to definitely improve personally, but also my business. But a lot of times you don't have someone, to kind of hold you accountable and say, check up on you. And I want to use this as an opportunity to do that as well. Anyway, that'll come. So I wanted to start with, how on earth did we get together? How do we meet? And I wanted to ask your version of that story first before I share my perspective.
Yeah, I know. So I was living in New Orleans, born and raised, and I wanted to, at the time, this is now 7-ish years ago, I wanted to plant a church. And so in part of that, I wanted to go and train and learn and do those things and figure out, like, how do I go about that? And so I ended up at an internship in Orange County, and working for a pastor out there. And that pastor ended up saying, hey, there's this guy you should meet. He's one of our volunteer leaders. You should go and meet with him. And I said, okay. I mean, I don't know anybody there. Literally the pastor that I'm working for is the first guy I met and first guy I knew, right? And I said, okay, like I don't know any better. Whatever, let's do it. And he says, yeah, his name's Scott. He's a great guy. Go maybe take him to breakfast or something and go kind of get to know him. I said, yeah, it sounds good. And I think you were out of the country at the time, and so it took us a little while. It took like a month or so to get to you, but because you're doing those things. And finally we meet up, and I remember I pull up and you're outside. You have a newspaper, you got your coffee, and I pull up, I see you, and I'm like, hey, how's it going? Nice to meet you. And you were like, yes, the pastor wanted you to meet with me, huh? I was like, yeah. And you said something like, all right, well, like to the effect of like, all right, what do you want? And I think you were thinking I was trying to set you up to do some volunteer work or something. And I was like, oh no, I just want to. So at first I was like, man, this guy's a jerk or something for a second. Then I was like, no, I can understand that. He probably thinks that I'm coming to get something from him. So I said, no, I just, wanted to meet with you and all these things. And ever since then, we had a great convo that meeting, and ended up obviously hanging out almost every day, it felt like. And
Sure.
we were basically inseparable. Everybody they knew that if they were inviting one of us, the other one was coming with usually,
Wow.
and yeah,
I
that's at
didn't
least.
realize that I seemed like such a reluctant volunteer. I was a volunteer
No,
that seemed like you didn't want
hey, in all fairness, you were asked to do a lot of stuff.
to get invited. So wait, you said I was out of the country. What? How many years ago was that? Like
Seven.
7 years?
I want to say you were in Germany.
Right, Germany. Okay.
I want to say, yeah, I
I,
want to say
I was
20.
I was there in 2013. I also went. Actually,
Yeah,
you might be right. I was, yeah. Okay. Okay. Yeah.
yeah,
So I get back and I remember. Okay, here's my take on it. I remember we met at I think it was called Michael's at the time, but now it's
yeah.
like
That's
Linda's,
right.
and we met for breakfast burritos. And you're right, I do remember. Well, I think I don't know what I was doing. I think I was reading the Wall Street Journal that morning, and that's probably the first impression you had of me. Like, but it wasn't. I was probably dressed pretty casually, so pretty approachable. I think I was I still working in the. Yeah, I was in this. Might have been still working in
Software.
some. Yeah, our software. Anyway,
Yeah.
I remember when you came up, I asked you who you were, and then you kind of introduced yourself as Chris's new intern, and you wanted to plant a church. You're from New Orleans, right? And man, I was like, this kid is confident, and I think he's got the right amount of confidence to become pastor. Um, I mean, little did we know that you would end up becoming an entrepreneur. But I think in many ways, pastors are entrepreneurs, right? You plant
Yeah,
churches. So,
definitely.
but I guess somewhere down the line, you decided, you wanted to use your skills in business in the marketplace rather than being a man of the cloth. And so now, did I have any influence in that? Because I know I always encourage, people who want to take that route. Hey, go plant churches. But what what happened? How did?
No, I think I don't think it was an issue of you influencing anything like that. I had other mentors and people who funny enough, like I didn't realize at the time, but I had guys who were from the business world now in the church, and I would actually go and they were mentors of mine, and I would go and kind of pick their brain of like, hey, I'm feeling like this isn't, now that I'm in this, like for the first time,
Hmm,
this being ministry. I'm like, hey, this doesn't feel like how I imagined it would feel. This isn't what I thought, I imagined it would be. And
yeah.
and it was more so one of my mentors who kind of put the nail in the coffin for me, and was like, you know, he basically was like, if your heart is to help people who are not in the church, he's like, well, then obviously the church is the worst place to do that,
Sure.
because everyone who's here is going to be in the church and involved in the
Sure.
church. And I think you touched on something that's like it kind of made the transition easier. You said pastors are, basically like entrepreneurs, and I think that was what I kind of felt the pulse of. It was like, I think I love the entrepreneurial aspect
Mhm.
of this, um, but I don't want to go and plant a church. I
Sure.
want to go
Yeah.
and kind of. Sorry if I'm going too long on this, but we've talked about this before. I don't think it was the thing that made us click. By the way, was not like what we were doing necessarily, but why we were doing it, right?
Sure.
And even from that first conversation we had, when we met, I remember us talking about, you're asking me questions. Why do you want to do this? Why? And I'm asking you questions. And I think, like you said, I mean, I'm interning at a church, and you're working in like tech industry basically, and we both couldn't have been more different in terms of profession, but I think our hearts were both to help people, and I think we both had uh, like common denominator that we loved people and we wanted to help them. And I felt like church is definitely not a bad place to do those things. It's obviously a great place to do those things, but I wanted to do it more so outside of the church context. And I think that you felt the same way, and it kind of, led us to where we're at.
So before we get to where we're at today,
Yeah.
how did we end up going into business together? So to let people know, we both co-founded Revival Jewelry. And if you haven't figured out already, Jacob currently does not work for Revival Jewelry, but he was one of the co-founders. I want to ask you, what inspired you to want to start Revival and work with someone like me? And obviously we don't work together anymore, but
Yeah. I think, well, I came from a background, this is probably important to note for people. I came from a background of jewelry. So it wasn't like, Revival's a jewelry company that's centered around an invention, which will, I'll let you dive into. But I came from a background of jewelry, and you and I were talking once. It's towards the end of my time at this internship, and I was kind of knowing I was on the way out, didn't know what was next, but I knew I had an entrepreneurial spirit, and I'm like, I want to do something. I just don't. It's no longer in the context of church. And I had to move back to New Orleans for personal reasons, for my family. And while I was here, you gave me a call talking about an invention you had kind of shared with me.
Yeah.
And you were basically like, hey, why don't we, basically collab and do something with this invention. And it was at that moment I kind of thought, like, I think this thing's going to be bigger than just like my little jewelry designs, and then we had more serious conversations, and it became something where, hey, this isn't going to be like a side hustle or like a hobby or anything. This is going to be like a full-fledged business, and we're going to jump into this thing together. And yeah, that's how it started. It was interesting. I was kind of transitioning out, and you popped up with this great idea, and it's crazy. We happened to meet together at this church, and we both had, I thought, what it took to, to make this thing happen.
We'll have plenty of opportunity to go into details about, like, what went wrong with the business or what we did right. And I just remember we were very excited early on when, because you have the jewelry background. I don't come from a jewelry background, but like you mentioned, I stumbled upon an invention because my uncle and Hannah, they showed me this little gem looking thing that could store photos, and I thought, hey, this could be applied to jewelry, because I think they were trying to make, I want to say, like, toys and charms and trinkets, but I thought, what if we design jewelry? And honestly, the first time I did design a piece was more because I wanted to make one for my mother, because my dad has passed away, and so that inspired the first iteration of what we had. But finally, I after working through multiple designs, I just called you up, and I knew you knew how to design jewelry, and I knew you were out there hustling in New Orleans doing your thing. In fact, you came up with the name Revival, right? Because you wanted to kind of revive what the city of New Orleans, right, in some way, and we kind of hijacked it for our rollout. But anyway, so sometimes I think people go into business simply because they find commonality, right? Like I honestly, I knew I wanted to start a business at that time, but I think I had my eyes set on doing a protein bar or something like that. Do you remember me talking to you about that?
I do, yeah.
So I did some R&D, was going to try to develop a formula for a good high protein bar, but of course, there's what you call a crowded market, right? Saturated market. And I'm glad I didn't do that. Well, so is jewelry, but I think we had a unique offering, right, within that market.
Exactly.
So I thought it was a good fit. And really, I think most people say they start a business because with the intent of, changing the world or creating an invention that will, disrupt an industry. But I actually just wanted to start any business. And if you came to me with the ability to like, I don't know, design furniture. We might be in the furniture business, but just so happened those were the skill sets we had. And I really wanted to kind of grow something from scratch. And I wasn't about the actual product as much, but in any case, it worked because it's something that we both saw a need for in the market. And like you said, you've never seen anything like that sort of jewelry, and to me, it was simple. It was just a modern version of the locket, but to you,
Yeah.
you thought it was something, that was game changing in the industry. That's what I remember you and your because your dad is in the jewelry industry as well. You guys said this is a game changer for jewelry. And
Yeah.
anyway,
Yeah, it's had so much, has so much potential, honestly, and it's just jewelry. I mean, maybe I'm getting off on a tangent a little bit here, but this is kind of why we wanted to do what we wanted to do too. Was um, we looked at the context of the market, and like you said, my dad's from jewelry. He's been around for 30 years in the industry, right? And you never see anything new. It's very cyclical. It's very, oh, what's new is that now this year it's yellow gold, and in 5 years the style is white gold, right? Like that's the big thing in jewelry. And when you see an actual invention, or a huge innovation, I mean, it was like, man, we've got to do this because it's bringing something so new to the industry, in an industry that's honestly
yeah,
stale a lot of times.
sure,
It just feels like everything's the same, just the gift wrap is different, right?
yeah.
But the product inside's all the same. So it's really exciting. It's always been exciting. I remember like when we first started, I was so hyped about it, and I still am. I love the product still dearly.
So, making a long story short, we find this great invention. We decide to go into business together, and I'm going to skip all the details of how we ended up building the business, but we were in it for a few years together. And at a certain point, you decided you wanted to part ways. I mean, we'll commit a whole segment on the
Yeah.
reasons why we decided to part ways, but and a lot of co-founders end up going separate ways, right?
Mhm.
But I want to ask you, what brought us to this point of like wanting to do a YouTube channel together? Why do you want to do this? Just
I think because a lot of moments in the beginning of our business felt like we had angel investors and people who would come in and talk to us about the potential of investing into the company, right? And I remember wanting it so badly from the beginning, and realizing that a lot of business is who right? And I didn't, I, you, me, my dad, we didn't know anybody in the space that could just flip this thing on and make it work, right? And some of these guys with deeper pockets and things have those connections. And I remember thinking in that moment, I'm like, if you can't beat people with who their only real competition is what right? And so I remember distinctly in those moments thinking, I've got to learn more. I've got to learn more, right? And then I'm like, and as years passed and we got off the ground, I remember thinking and going, how many other people are out there like me who have great ideas or who have great businesses that they're a part of, and or just really want to get into business and they don't have the know-how, right? They don't have the knowledge. They have zero connections. They have zero background. They have zero family that can help them. They have zero input, period. And I was like, I would love to one day have some kind of platform where I don't consider myself a business expert, still to this day, but I can definitely help people with my mistakes, and at least give them wisdom from, hey, here's what I did, and you can learn from that. And I really, that's more so my motivation to do this, is to
you just
help
want to
people who
share good
want to go
learnings.
into business or early on in it, and who need the knowledge or the wisdom from other people's failures because they don't have anybody to depend on for them, or they don't have the ability to even make those mistakes. You know what I'm saying? I mean, a $5,000 mistake could be someone's entire livelihood, right?
Yeah.
And if we can show them how our journey and those mistakes and the lessons from them, that would make me super happy to get a call in, 5 years from now to be like, hey, I started a business just hearing from you guys' podcast and learning, and it's helped me, whatever, whatever it could end up being. And you guys helped me avoid certain potholes and things. And now it's not and they've got a business. It doesn't have to be the next Amazon. It could be just a local business.
If these two schmucks could run a successful business, I can do
it. Well, that's kind of how it feels sometimes. That's why I'm like, I'm definitely like, not coming here where I'm like, oh, I'm this expert and listen to me. It's more so, here's our experience, and I hope it helps you guys. And
Sure.
that's kind of my perspective on it all.
Well, you kind of heard at the beginning, I wanted to do this for myself, and on one hand, so that it's hard to actually. I do have some friends that are entrepreneurs and have their own businesses, but it's really tough to consistently keep in touch with them so that we can talk about our business and challenges that we face, and keep each other accountable. But I also, if I put it out there in public saying, I'm going to do this to help my business grow, then I feel like it's going to, provide more incentive for me to execute on that quickly. Because I think one of the things I'd love to talk to you about at some point is just, how to continue to, pursue long-term growth, because I think Revival's we've been at it now 4 years, right? That's not very long, but to me it feels like a lifetime, and sometimes you burn out, right? And so I need some help and encouragement from you and maybe anyone out there that might be watching this, And so I appreciate you doing this with me. I know I feel like it's a natural progression for us, because early on we thought we had great ideas enough to put into some kind of podcast or YouTube channel, but we had never really done anything, they were all just ideas until we actually did, and now we can share some of that and what we actually have gone through. So anyway, I think that's a wrap for our first episode. And in case someone's watching, thanks for watching our channel. If there's anyone watching, like and subscribe. And since it is our first episode, you might actually be the first one to do so. Till next time.